because I know they say, oh, you can't blame people. No, you can. You can. If you're a child and something happened to you and it is impacting or impeding on your adulthood, you can place, I won't say place blame, but you can place responsibility where it's supposed to be placed. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Just for those that might be tuning in to kind of like catch you up to speed about kind of what we talked about and discussed. That was a good discussion. So I'm not going to go over everything, but I am going to go over just some of the prompts. So this was the introspection. That's what part 1 is called. It's the introspection. So it's the identifying or identifier stage. And so just to give clarity on like what the journey series is in terms of modesty, there's already been a couple live teachings where we've talked about, the first live teaching was just an overview of what modesty is, and that these essential teachings will kind of show you more of what modesty is, what it looks like, because it's more than just clothes. The clothes aspect is important. However, it is, modesty is your character. It's all rooted in your character. And so what this journey series is really just character development. And character development that then we will progress to what that looks like when it comes to presenting yourself. But it's really based on really getting to know yourself and like what's in your character, or just even the things within you that you might have, you know, pushed down due to life, trauma, things like that. We're uncovering all of that to deal with it. And then, you know, release yourself from that so that then you can show up and be who you were called to be, like who, you know, that visual of who you know you should be, and what habits and things like that come with that. So that's pretty much what the journey series is, and it's for everyone. So you don't necessarily, like, again, it's not the clothes thing, right? The clothes is an aspect of it. However, it's not specifically on clothes. Now, the other prompts and series and parts within this series will deal with the clothes aspect, because, you know, once you've learned, and I think it's important, and why it's important is because once you've learned like who you are, once you've have those things, then now it's time to dress yourself according to who you are. You know what I mean? And I don't think a lot of people know how to put things together or know how to then dress that new part of them. Or even if you're in transition of like, you're not necessarily like your new self yet, you're still kind of like in that transition, like there's a way to still dress and approach how you present yourself outwardly. And that's not only just with clothes, that's with body language, posture, things like that. So that encompasses all of that. And so you might not necessarily be in that space where you're like, well, I already know those things. Okay, so this journey series could look different. Like, so for me, this journey series, I'll get a little transparent. I mean, I think I've been transparent throughout the thing, but I'll get a little bit more transparent. So for me, this journey series is different because I have that gifting and ability of clothes and putting things together. Even when I am not wearing it myself, I can do it for other people. And so I don't necessarily need help with that. However, the reason why I'm going through this journey series is for the new me, right? So I've done a lot of healing, I've done a lot of introspection. A lot of this I've already gone through, so that's how I've been able to shape this journey series, because I've gone through it. However, this part of and like the journey series, it's always a journey. So even when you feel like you've reached that 5th part, once you've reached that and you've mastered that, you go back to part 1, because there's also something else that needs to be uncovered and discovered and worked on. And so it's a continual thing. And so yes, I've reached part 5, and so I'm back at part 1, because for like the past, I would say like maybe 5 to 6 years, I'm trying to think in my head, because I feel like with COVID just really just changed how time is viewed. Like, so let me just think for a minute. 18, 19, 20. Okay, so no, it's been like 8 years. Okay, so I was off. So I would say like from 5 to 8 years, within that span, I've gone through a lot of things, right? And a lot of changes in my body, a lot of changes in health, things like that. And so I've also have dealt with like injuries from a car accident, and like that was like long-standing because it's a long-standing issue. And when you have a mobility injury, especially like to your low back and your hip, the last accident that I was in, like in 2019, or was it 2018? 2018 and 2019, my left hip was pushed up 3 inches higher than the right, so it was pushed up into like the hip socket, and so I had a limp, a severe limp, and an imbalance, and that also caused an injury in my low back and low spine. And so yeah, that was pretty intense. I had to learn to rewalk again in ways, and it just was a lot. And though yes, I still have better mobility than I had back then, there's still some challenges, and so that's like an ongoing thing. And then also around that time, and even before 2019, around 2016, 2017, there was issues reproductive wise, and so yeah, that changed everything. Body changes, birth control, not on birth control. Like, there was just a lot of things. I had to have blood transfusion. So with all of that, and I think also too, when, if you've never experienced a place to where you know how your body functions, and you know, like, you're so used to your body functioning in a way, and then when that's completely stripped away from you and you no longer have those functions, and then like when you look in the mirror, you see whatever you're going through reflected on your body, and then also just that's what you see in the reflection. So for me, like when I looked in the mirror, I could see my injury reflected on my body. Like my body was showing, you know, how injured it was. Also at that time I was afflicted with sickness really bad, and so I could see that affliction of sickness on my body, on myself. And so when I looked in the mirror, I didn't know who that was, but I just know that image of me. And then also, you know, your mind remembers the image of yourself, the image of like when you're in your, you know, your prime, or like your glory days, right, when you could do all those things. And so then there's this comparison, and then also you're left with the reality of like what is present. And it's very hard to deal with. It's a very intense mental, emotional, spiritual, physical battles that are all wrapped into one. And so yeah, you could really go down to a very dark space. I did go down to a dark space and pretty much a pit for a couple years, and had to like crawl out of that. And so I know what that feels like when you feel like I'm in a pit and have to crawl out. It's not fun. And so for me, this journey series is personal because it's walking through what it looks like to see yourself in a new way, to relinquish that image of how I saw myself, or what I looked like in those down times. And though yes, I'm not 100%, I'm so much better than where I was, and I definitely don't look like what I've been through, nor do I move like what I've been through. And so it's like taking those images, those pictures that I had in my mind of myself at that time, and discarding that. Like, that no longer serves me. And especially as women, like, your body, there's a lot of phases that your body's gonna go through. And so though I went through a phase to not necessarily where I wanted to go through, it did impact my body in ways. And so, you know, when you're dealing with new areas where there's weight or weight fluctuations, or if you have ongoing symptoms that kind of go on and off, or they come and go, things like that, it can also impact like how you feel and how you look at yourself. And so for me, for like the past 3 years, it's been like 2 to 3 years, because after I had my blood transfusion. So I had my blood transfusion in 2021. It was the end of 2021 when I had my blood transfusion. And I had lost so much blood that it really impacted, like, it impaired and impacted my memory, my thinking, and then also my vision really bad. And so yes, I still have some things with that, that it comes and goes, and so I have to kind of, you know, keep track of that. But after, so that 2022 rolled around when because I couldn't work for a while and things like that. So while I was sitting in my bed, I remember, because my birthday is January 3rd. So at the beginning of 2022, I had told myself, like, okay, so I'm going to show up regardless of how I feel. However, I'm not going to like over push myself, like, you know, push it to the limit, but I am going to show up, and I'm going to show up with however that looks like. And so at that time, like financially, I was going through because of like everything that was going on. And then of course I couldn't work. And so it just really impacted every part of my life. Right. And so I had told myself, like, I'm not going to allow the gift that I've been given, which is, I think it's more than fashion, but just being able to, again, put outfits together, being able to present myself in a way that is just a God-given ability, and also to help other people like find who they are and express who they are through clothes and their presentation. And so I didn't want to, trying to think of the word, excuse me, because I am having a little like brain blocks, but I didn't want to use that as a mask. So yeah, I had like really bad swelling, so I couldn't really fit clothes, and I still have a lot of swelling, but it's gone down, but just a lot of symptoms and reactions to things that they were trying to keep blood in my body, pretty much, because I was losing it at a fast rate. And so they put me on birth control and all these things, and that just, you know, I've never been on birth control, so that just, my system was like, girl, what are you doing? We don't like that. So there was things with that, and that did impacted my body. And so I couldn't wear what I wanted to wear. I couldn't express myself how I wanted to express. And then also too, dealing with just mental overload, emotional overload with all of that. And mind you, like the injury and all these other things that were happening, this has been ongoing for years. So just imagine taking on just the mental, emotional load of all of that for years, you know what I mean? And then get to a point to where it's like, I'm at a point now where it's like life or death. Literally life or death. And so taking on that, all of that, and then, you know, just the everyday things of how is that gonna work? Like, am I gonna be okay? All the, you know what I mean? Just all this stress. So, being overworked, the years of being overworked, and then also just burnt out. So with me being burnt out, it tainted almost, or just, I really lost like my creative edge. Like, I could not think creative to save my life. Like, I could get some of the basics down of systems that I've built before, so I would just use that, but I could not, when I say I had no creativity, like, it was gone. And so then that was hard. And so when it came to then having to present myself in a way, especially like when you start a business, or when you have a business, or when you're going out for jobs and stuff, people expect you to look a certain way, right? And I couldn't do that. And so I had told myself that I won't let or allow my gift to be a mask that I wear, where it's like, I'm just going to dress myself up, and if I can't dress myself up in the way that I want to, then I won't show up. So I told myself I wouldn't do that. And so this is what the Journey series started for me 2 to 3 years ago. That's what it was. And so I had, like, again, I've worked through all of these. So I've gotten to the 5th stage where it's like, okay, you're finally okay with just showing up, whatever that looks like. Now, I'm not going to look crazy, but it's like I'm coming how I am regardless of what I have or what's going on. And then also not allowing internal pressures or indirect pressures that sometimes we don't know about. Because I was talking to someone and they were talking about how they had came to the awareness and knowledge that they had, or they were making decisions off of like the indirect pressures that aren't necessarily said, but it's kind of like the culture of where they were at, or like the community they're in. And so yeah, now allowing those indirect pressures, now allowing social media, now allowing all of the things that were going around that time, because again, there was a lot going on, especially towards women on that time around social media. So not allowing any of that to tell me who I am, my worth, based on my presentation. And so that changed I said that changed the game. That changed the game. So now I'm in a season and I'm back at, square one for my journey to modesty and continuing what I've already started 3 years ago. But expanding it more because I've identified, and through the journey, I've been able to identify other things that's like, okay, though I'm very much like, you don't have to tell me what to do. You don't have to tell me what to do. But again, those indirect internal pressures that you really don't realize, or just even things that you heard growing up, you really don't even really realize how it sits in your subconscious until life gets real. So my thing is now I'm addressing those subconscious things that I didn't know that were sitting in my subconscious, or even just sitting in my body, because your body does keep the score, and getting rid of that, and then continuing with showing up in the way that I need to. And so also in this journey series, so I'm in this part 2 where now I feel my creative edge coming back, and I feel like it's coming back in such a new and beautiful way, and I want to explore that and allow that to be free and not bound or limited to, again, whatever's happening in society, what people are saying. And so that's what my journey series is allowing my creativity to flourish in a space and in this container, right, in this vessel that's no longer limited or bound to the things around her. So that's the spill. So maybe you may not be on a journey of knowing what modesty is, but you might be on, like, when it comes to your character, relearning. You might be healing, releasing a lot of things like that. This is what this journey, it encapsulates all of that, right? And again, once you get to 5, you are going to come to something else that you might need to start back at level 1, section 1 or section 2 or section 3 to deal with. So I've identified what I need to start back at level 1 with, and now I'm on level 2 when it comes to my creativity, allowing that. And 2, it's so funny how God works, because that's something I've been praying about, is my creativity, because I'm like, okay, Lord, like, I was overworked, all those things, and so it's really stifling my creativity and not allowing that to flow. And if you're a creative, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's probably like the worst thing that you can do to yourself as a creative is once that creativity kind of like dries up or gets snatched up. It can be a dark place. So don't allow yourself to get there. However, with that, I think I've been doing a great job of just showing up. And a part of that too that I didn't mention was not allowing external things. So we talk about the clothes, we talk about makeup, we talk about the hair, we talk about the nails. I love my nails. I'm just allowing them to my nail beds to recover and be healthy, because with the blood transfusion I had a lot of I was really low in like a lot of the vitamins and deficiencies and minerals and stuff that I should have. So my nails aren't as strong as I would like them to be. Oh, but trust and believe, I'm gonna get my nails back. But just all those things, right? Not allowing those external things to become masks. And that's something to me that I was just like, I am not allowing any of this, even though and it's hard when you are a fashion designer, and it's hard when you are trying to promote a fashion brand filled with clothes, because that's all people want to see, and that's all they want to see reflected on you. And I think for me, with this journey series, that has been something that I have struggle with the most, is because it's like, okay, but you're a fashion designer. I want to see fashion, and then also I want to see or be able to see fashion reflected on you, if that's what you say you do. And that has been hard, because I'm like, yes, though that's what I do, and I can do very well, in this season, that's not something that I have to prove, or that I have to prove ever. But specifically, it's like in this season, I'm showing up. Just showing up, and whatever that looks like is whatever that looks like. Like right now I have no makeup on, and so, not because anything against makeup, but my thing is just like, if I don't have the makeup, or if I don't have the time to do makeup, I'm not going to cancel something, or I'm not going to say, oh, I'm not going to show up on live because I don't look, you know, or I'm not putting a filter on. I'm not, which I didn't do filters anyway, but I'm not doing any of that. Like, I'm like, what you see is what you get. And so that was something too within this journey series that I uncovered, was that internal or external pressure that I didn't even know that I was feeding into, because it's like, yeah, it's hard to promote a fashion brand and you don't look like the fashion reflected that people would want you to look like, because you're just really just trying to show up and you're just really trying to push through with what you're going through. And that was very hard, but I am in part 2, which is the assess and gather. So I'm just going to go to those prompts so we can talk a little bit about that. But I know that I have moved to part 2. And again, like, it took me a year and a half, maybe even a little bit more than that, because I think there were some things that I just didn't want, that I already knew and I had already identified. However, I just didn't want to come to grips with it. And I think that that's okay in the journey. If there's some things where it's like, I already had enough on my plate, so I wasn't about to add this thing too. Like, that can wait. Like, let me just deal with what I know is the most important, and that's okay too. Because there's other things that I identified, but I was like, I don't have the capacity right now, and that was okay. And so now that I've gone through all the other stuff, now I have the capacity to be able to then handle this the way I need to. And so really the assess and gather is going off of part 1, where you're identifying things about yourself, things like that. And this is really just identifying who you are and the things about yourself that you are kind of unaware of. And that could be negative, and it also could be positive. So it's a duality, right? And I think it's great to have duality, and I think that's something that this brand really stands for. Oops, sorry, let me make sure this is off. Is the duality, like, there could be 2 things true at the same time, and that's okay. And I think leaning into the duality is something that isn't common, but I think that we should make it common, because 2 things can be true at once, period. And so what this part 2 is, and I'm thinking I'm going to have a recap session where I merge part 1 and part 2. And so I'll go over some of the answers and prompts of my own personal information that I used for like part 1, and then show you what part 2 looks like in real time, because there are some things that you're going to have to do. And so I think I will do that, because I would like to do that, because I would like to have the visual while teaching. I think that's helpful, because some people might not know kind of where to start or what to do. And so I know when I am introduced to something new, I like to like know everything, or just give me the next steps and what that looks like. So I think I'll do that. But so this is really pulling together what you've kind of identified, what you've processed from your identification, pulling all of that together, kind of dealing with that, sitting with that, journaling, doing whatever you have to do to really get in a space of acceptance. But then also like, okay, so now that I know, what am I going to do about this? Now that I know, how am I going to handle this? What's the next steps? Things like that. So my transition into this part 2, which is the assess and gather, again, so this part is really taking on and really regaining or taking back the reins of my creativity. And so lately I have been, and I'll actually put this on, show you examples of this on the actual page. So I'll be posting more about this. I'm just trying to get it together, but I'll be posting more about this because I've been in a season, well, in a part of this season to where my creativity is coming back. Now, I do still have some memory blocks here and there, and I might forget things, or just like my mind goes blank. So I'm praying about that. Please pray for me. But creativity wise, God has been very faithful, and the Holy Spirit has been just downloading things. And I feel it coming back, and I feel it coming back in a way that is very beautiful. And so for me, what this part 2 is, so the first part of is like pulling colors, pulling themes, pulling words, kind of that reflect that authentic part of you. So in part 1, we talked about like, think about a time where you feel like the most like authentic, like whether that be like a scenario, whether that's something that happened, whether that was like at an event or some part in your life that you felt like you were displaying the most authentic part of yourself, right? And that also could just be like you by yourself. There's, so with that, we're building on like that. Like, yes, we in part 1 kind of identified some of the other things you might not like about yourself, things like that. That is information, and we're going to use that. But however, that most authentic part of yourself, right, that you've displayed in some way, in some scenario, somehow, start to pull colors. Like, what colors does that represent? What themes, right? What words? Even if you can't pull colors and themes, like, okay, what words describe that? Or whatever else visually that represents that for you. But, and not just in like, oh, I'm just going to pull the things I like. No, the totality of that, the totality of your most authentic self. What is that? And so you can pull different things that will reference that, and not just what you like, because it's really not about what you like. It's really about that most authentic part and what that represents and how it's represented and how you can then communicate that. Because I think a lot of people feel like they're not good with words, or they're not good with it. You don't have to be good with words and all those things like that. There's a way to position it, and there's a way to position yourself even when you're representing yourself visually, right? So this series, this part will just show you how to pull all of those things together, then to when we get to part 5, really creating what the model and what that looks like and how that's represented. But we want to just take that authentic, the most authentic part of you. And you know what it is, because I'm pretty sure when I said it, like, your brain automatically went back to a time or a place or whatever that looked like, right? And sit and what words come to mind, like what feelings. It could be emotion, it could be feelings, it could be a picture, a visual, like whatever that looks like, because that is the representation of what you should aspire and also hope for. Not just in your present, because again, it will take time to get there, but like that's your projecting towards your future, because that's that's where you should be, right? That should be where your aspirations are. Your aspirations shouldn't be in what maybe other people have or what you see what other people have. Yes, that's great, but really that aspiration should be that section, that part in time when you were your most authentic self. That is what your future is. That is what your aspiration should be. That is what your hope should be. And then also in thinking about in part 1, we addressed some of the negative things you don't like about yourself. And that could be physical, that could be mental, like whatever that looks like, right? And then also, was this brought on by society? Was this something that someone, your first grade teacher told you about? Like, how did you form this feeling about yourself that you deemed it unworthy or unlikable? And like, what happened? And writing that down, because you will need that to be able to strip yourself from that, to then get to that authentic part of yourself. So hopefully that makes sense. And that's kind of like what I was trying to illustrate with my story of, like, I remembered a time of, and I think I'm always pretty much authentically me, even when I'm in spaces and places where people aren't authentically themselves, and me being authentically me means, I'm trying to think of the right word, means I will experience some type of retaliation or something in some way, or it might not always be my best effort. You know what I mean? People say, well, it wasn't in my best, not effort, but it wasn't in my best interest to do that. But I believe in just, look, I'm the same all the time. It doesn't matter where I am, who I'm with, Like, you will always get the same me everywhere. And so I know that like sometimes that was to my detriment, meaning it wasn't detrimental to me to be authentic. However, in the space and place that I was and around the people I were, that's not what they called for or required or wanted from me. So then that always looked negative, right? Or was exposed in a negative light. However, for me, it was the best thing I could have done, because when I look back on those situations, I'm like, well, I showed up as myself. I was authentic to who I am, and I didn't bend my morals and things like and values to compensate someone who don't even know who they are. You know what I mean? And when you put it down like that, of like, I'm bending my morals, I'm showing up as, not courageous and bold, to fit within a section or sector or remnant of people who don't even know who they are, or hate the thought of themselves, or have so many masks that they switch on and off to where they don't even have an idea of who their most authentic self are. Like, when you sit and think about that, you're just like, how much time have we wasted? You know what I mean? On something like that. So, yeah. So you need to know this to then be able to strip yourself of the things that you necessarily don't like, because you're gonna have to strip yourself of that. You will have to strip. Like, this comes at a sacrifice, and I think people are ready to like get to the good part and get to like feeling normal. And I would say that a lot. And when I prayed, I'd be like, oh God, I can't wait to feel normal again, right? Whenever you've had, I don't know who's had, but if you've ever had an injury, like a low back injury or a spinal injury or a hip injury or a knee injury, you know what I'm talking about when I say, like, I'm so ready to feel normal again. And I said that forever, like, I'm just so ready to feel normal again. But my thing was like, my idea of normalcy, like, that wasn't even normal. So that's why I said, like, what is even normal? Because I think the ideas that we have of what normal is, or like what good is those aren't even good or normal. So but this all comes at a sacrifice. So like, how willing are you willing to sacrifice? Like, what are you willing to do to sacrifice to get to where you can really flow and like be in tune with yourself and stop disassociating, right? And be able to flow at such a magnitude and at such a freedom that even the things around you, like in society, that are happening have no impact on you. You know what I mean? That it won't have any impact on your day or like how you choose to show up. Like, and for me, I feel like that's like the most liberating thing, is like, okay, all hell could be breaking loose like it is now. But really, hell isn't really breaking loose right now in this current climate. It's honestly just history repeating itself. But, we feel like we're past what happened in the 1800s. But when you actually look back on history, because I do love history, I do love researching, history is just repeating itself because we haven't learned our lesson. And so when all those things are going on, right, when life feels like it's just beating you down, or like there's so many trials and things that are happening and changes that are happening, because there's going to be a lot of changes that happen in this journey as well. You'll be able to have such a peace and be centered in a way to where it's like, okay, that's happening, but it's not impacting me. Because when I look back, even 5 years ago, even 2-3 years ago, like some of the things that I'm like, yeah, but I'm not even flinching the way I was flinching before. Not that I was flinching like scared, but like worried. Like, and I don't have that worry anymore. It's completely gone, but it's all because of the cultivation. It's all because of the sacrifice. It's everything of me continuing to be committed to the journey. So you have to be committed, and you're not going to get it right all the time. You're not going to get it right all the time. Okay. Cause I don't get it right all the time. There are days, and I know people say like, oh, you have such a positive outlook. Like, do you understand how long it took me to have a positive outlook about things? Like, it took years, right? And I think also too, for those that might have had a rough childhood or might have to grow up in their childhood, that grow up and, so lost their childhood and things like that. I think you can understand when I say like, there are certain things and mindsets that you have to take on in order to just deal with it and kind of survive. And so it takes years of like formulating the mindsets and the positivity around things, but still there are still some days where I'm just like, really, like, please ease up a little bit. So yeah, so that's what part, well, there's another prompt. So that's the first part. So I can give you an example of what that looks like for me. So right now, I'm going through a phase where I'm just pulling things out of my closet. Now, I downsized a lot like December 2024. So I got rid of a lot of stuff. Got rid of my storage, all the things like that, because I had put things in storage. So I got rid of a lot of stuff. So I am literally down to just like the bare bones of like what I have. And so that's why I said I'm going to be putting and posting content about this, because this is something I actually wrote about. Yesterday I was, as a side note, yesterday I was writing back down some things, like putting it in a different, because I like to have it in multiple places in case I can't access it. And so I came across things I had wrote in like 2021, and I'm like, wow, like the fact that it's 2025, but some of these things I've already like started putting into action, it just hasn't shown up yet, but it'll pop up. Amazed me. And then also too, talking about what I'm about to say, like of my journey and the journey of things and how I wanted to put things together in terms of clothes and things like that, and seeing how I wrote that back in 2021. And now I'm like, oh, I'm really about to literally do that now. So yeah, so I'm in the bare bones, right? So I have gathered some colors and themes and like reimagined what that looks like for me, and reflected on some of the most authentic parts. And even like in me uncovering and healing, there are new authentic parts of myself that I'm like, ooh, I want to explore that. Like, what does that look like? Like, you know, what does that look like in different seasons and all of that? And so, yeah, I'm working with what I have right now. So in this transition, I'm working with what I have, and that means even in terms of clothes. And so, where my creativity has cultivated and created things for me in ways, especially in presentation, based on just like what I have, to me has been amazing. But I also know that that's only by the grace of God, right? And yeah, so I'm gonna also be posting that because I think that that's important. And I think that for people that might be watching this, you're probably thinking like, yeah, but I don't have the money, I don't have, girl, I got you. I got you. I'm gonna show you how even in this, while you're in this journey, and this journey will get tough, you will have just things that are happening also in the world financially. There's transitions of power. There's so much going on that will impact you in some way, somehow, financially, and or just, you know, your regular way of life. And so I can show you how even in spite of that, you can still present yourself in a way to where you're in this journey and transition of moving into the most authentic part of you, and what that looks like. Clothes, because we are a fashion brand, so we have to still touch on the clothes aspect. And so I'll be putting some content out for that, because that's the journey that I'm on. I'm still showing up. So my journey is I'm still showing up regardless of whatever. So I'm not going to give way and or to internal pressures of having to show up and prove myself in ways in order to garner the right respect. Like, I'm just gonna show up, and you know what it is, and you can respect it or not, but either way, you're gonna have to respect it in the end. And then 2 is really allowing my creativity to continue to spring up and cultivate and create. And with that, in my current season, taking the things that I have right now, like everything that I have right now is more than enough. It is more than enough. And so I've been documenting that, and I am going to show that more. And also in terms of clothes, because we are a fashion brand and people are probably thinking about that as I'm even speaking. And so I will show you how to use what you have in your closet and show you that it's more than enough. And it's more than enough for like where you are now, but it also can be more than enough to where you are or where you will be at the end of this journey. Well, for this section, and then, you know, whatever you have to uncover, you go back through the journey. So now the second prompt is just to work, right? To work through all that you have identified in part 1. And then also working through what that looks like in the first prompt of like pulling things together. And I think that's why I want to do a full recap of part 1 and 2 together, to show you what it looks like to identify, or what has already been identified, what it looks like to actually work through it, give you some practical tools and tips on how to work through it, some emotions and things that might come up while you're doing it, and like how to work through that, and then show you what the part 2 looks like of like pulling certain themes and emotions and pulling words and things like that, and how to do that. And then the last part of like really digging deep and staying deep, right? Because I think sometimes we want to stay on the surface, because the surface is entertaining. The surface is entertaining, and it gets you through, and it gets you through those hard times it allows you to disassociate, right? To where you don't have to dig deep because you're being entertained on the surface. But this is where you have to dig deep. But then this is also where you cultivate such an admiration for yourself, and not admiration out of pride, and not an admiration out of like self-seeking and selfishness. Not that. I'm talking about admiration of like admiring the beauty of who you are, admiring even in those times where you couldn't show up how you wanted to show up, or you didn't show up how you knew you needed to show up, like still admiring your bravery for showing up, admiring the beauty of who you are, admiring those things that we call flaws, but they're not really flaws. They're not. They're actually, I call them pockets of perfection or pieces of perfection, because they're really unique pieces of perfection that makes you you. However, society will tell you that that's not perfect. But who is society? Like, who are you to tell me that that's not perfect? Because God makes all things perfect. Okay, when he looked down and when he was making things on the earth, and when he made mankind, he said it is good, meaning it is finished. But then also I did a good work here. You know what I mean? I created something beautiful here. So there's nothing that's not beautiful. And flaws are pieces of perfection that have yet to be uncovered, and also that aren't admired enough. And so you're going to take all the things that you don't like, that you listed, like that you don't like, that you feel is unworthy about yourself, and you're going to find a positive for it. You're going to sit and find a positive for it. And in that, you're going to call out your beauty, the beauty in those things, but also like your physical beauty. You're going to call out the things that are beautiful, and you're going to call it forward. So for me, right, I had mentioned in the last video, like, I don't really have eyebrows. Like, I don't have anything on my eyebrows. So this is the most eyebrows I've had. I'm 33. So like my eyebrows literally started growing when I turned 30. So I didn't really have eyebrows. When I was a baby, I was born with no eyebrows. It was literally like little blonde hairs that showed where my eyebrows could be, right? So it really was, I would say it was a little bit of insecurity, because it was just like, dang, there's nothing on my face. But it was only insecurity when people pointed it out, because for me, when I looked at myself, like, it didn't matter to me. And so that was a small insecurity. And it was a very brief, short time, because I'm like, what do you want me to do, right? So I still do draw my eyebrows. I still do fill them in a little bit. But if you're someone like me, it's like, dang, I don't got no eyebrows, right? Okay, but my eyebrows are beautiful. So I'm calling forth the beauty in my eyebrows. Yes, they might be a little bit thin. Yes, there might be some sparse hairs. Yes, I do not have, I'm missing the front of my brows. Like, you know how some people, like, their eyebrows come to a full point. I don't have a front. So like what you see, that's not even the front of my brows. That's just the I have a natural highlight under my brows, and so that's just the highlight. And again, like, I was born with that highlight, so that's just always going to be there. But I call forth the beauty of my brows because they're beautiful, right? And also what I do, I might still take care of my brows. Yes, my eyebrows don't grow like everyone else's, but I still do get them threaded a little bit, you know, keep them in shape. If you don't like your nose, okay, well, I call forth the beauty in my nose. I have a cute little button nose, right? So I call forth the beauty in my nose. If you don't like your skin tone, yes, I might have some hyperpigmentation. This weather has been a little crazy, so I've, like, you know, broken out a little bit. Yeah, this weather here in Washington, 0 out of 10, do not recommend. So I call forth the beauty in my skin. Like, my skin is beautiful. It is healthy. It is vibrant. If you don't like your eyes, so I would say for me, it's not an insecurity, but something that I did have to learn to love is because my eyes are a little bit darker. So I do have dark circles. It's only due to anemia and the blood issues, right? But like my eyes, I don't know if I can, oh yeah, I can take it off. So it doesn't look like it, but like this part of my eyes has always been darker. So I have like a natural eyeshadow. That's what I'm saying. Like, but that is like perfection. Okay, God was like, I'm gonna give her a natural highlight on her eyebrows, and she's gonna have some natural eyeshadow for her eyes. So I really don't even wear eyeshadow when I do wear makeup. And whenever I get my makeup done, they be like, girl, your eyes, like, the way everything is, it just automatically looks like I have makeup on. So if I were to fill in my brows, it's automatically gonna look like I have full makeup on. That's just how things work. But however, like, I call forth the beauty in my eyes. Yes, I might have dark circles, right? Yes, I might have anemia. Yes, I might have things that I'm dealing with. However, like, I call forth the beauty in that. And so, yeah. So you will have to do that, even to your physical body, right? If you don't like your neck, if you have a double chin, if you don't like your jawline, like, call forth the beauty in those things. Like, don't look at them as, because society, especially social media, will tell you, oh, just get it fixed. Like, just get injections and stuff like that. And yes, you can do all of that. However, it doesn't fix your perception of how you feel about that. Because with those injections and things like that, they have to keep getting those injections, because you can't just get injections and then that's it. No, they have to do maintenance for that to then keep that look. And so you've never really dealt with it. You just put a temporary fix that makes you think that, oh, it's fine now, I don't have that insecurity. But the fact that you have to keep maintaining it or you have to keep getting it so that you can then love what you look like with that injected in your face, means that you haven't dealt with it. You haven't really called for the beauty of it. You haven't accepted it. So even if you do decide to get it fixed in some ways during surgery and things like that, I'm not going to talk against that. That's fine. However, before you get those surgeries, before you get those nips and tucks and things and injections, like, before you get all of that, call forth the beauty in it. Call it beautiful. Really, not just call it beautiful, but think of it as beauty, right? You have to really deal with that mental and emotional connection, because you getting that fixed will not fix any of the internal things. I know people that have lost weight, right? And now that they're smaller, actually a lot of them wish that they were back to their original size, because one, they say society treats you better, right? So they've noticed, like, people, friends, things around them, and just people in general, even at their job, treat them better now that they're smaller, right? So then that messes with their head of like, wow, so y'all was just treating me any kind of way because I was a little bit bigger, right? And then also, because they're aiming to get skinny or to be small and to be at a certain size so much, and they haven't called forth the beauty in where they are right now and what their body looks like. And I'm not saying, people think, like, when they talk about body positivity and body acceptance, it's not saying like, oh, love your obesity so much that you don't want to change it. No, my thing is like, okay, so yes, if you might be overweight, or if you might be experiencing weight fluctuations in some areas, to where some areas are maybe out of proportion, or just not what they used to be, like, still love that. still do the things you need to do to kind of, you know, get back on track, but love that. Because if you continue to hate that, when you do get down to that size, you won't love that size, because then that won't be enough for you, because you just didn't love and accept yourself and really change your brain chemistry of how you view yourself. I hear it all the time, especially when it comes to like weight loss and things like that. So people that are taking Ozempic and all this stuff like that, I'm not going to talk on that, because everyone has their own avenue and vehicle in their journey of how they decide to deal with their bodies. However, in that, don't think that this is going to be the fix for me to actually begin to love myself, because though you might love what that thing is doing for you, like what happens when you can no longer do the thing that makes you love you? You're stuck with you, right? So call forth the beauty in that. Call forth the beauty. Not only just call it forth, like call it forth till you believe it. And the thing is, you have to actively believe it. And in believing it requires character development. It requires you unpacking and identifying why you hated it so much. And also the source that made you hate it, which is important, and which we did in part 1. So that's why I think I want to do a recap to kind of show you what this looks like in real time. So I think I might do that. And then, yeah, so calling that forth, digging deep, admiring yourself, admiring those attributes about yourself. And it might be some things about yourself that people have said like, oh, that's not, they're just haters, because everything that was created when you were created, you had everything you needed within yourself to be who you need to be was already inputted in you, right? And so though someone might not like an aspect of you, doesn't mean that aspect of you needs to be changed. You got to understand the source and where it's coming from, because if the source isn't right, that could be coming from a place of discontentment within themselves that they're projecting. Or if maybe the source is right about a little bit of it, then that just means that part of you just needs to be redirected a little bit. It just needs to be tweaked, you know what I mean? But still doesn't mean that part of you is worthless. So yeah, that's what this is. That's what part 2 is assessing and gathering. So you're taking what you've identified and you're assessing that. You're digging deep into that. You're going as deep as you can go. And then with even those things that you uncover, you're going to take accountability, but also then pour back into yourself. So for an example, right? I'm trying to think of an example of me off the top of my head. Trying to think of an example. Oh, I see fireworks. Did I do that? Did I do that when I was rocking back and forth? Or did someone do that? That's cool either way. I'm like, did I really do that? Or, I don't know. That's cool though. Thank you if someone did that. Or if I did that. An example would be for myself. Okay, so yeah, so we'll go back to, so in the beginning of this live, I explained kind of a little bit. I didn't give you guys everything, but I explained a little bit of just like my transition and how I am taking this journey to modesty, right? And it's from a different lens. So with that, and uncovering a lot of the things that were going on and a lot of things that I was experiencing within my body, I had to take accountability for it, right? But I had to identify where did it come from. So I had to identify that, okay, it kind of formed in childhood, right? And identifying a lot of the traumatic experiences and things that we experienced in our childhood, which would then put my body in a fight or flight mode, right? And so I think you've kind of heard that saying, like, you're in fight or flight mode. Okay, well, you're only supposed to be in that in certain situations. You're not supposed to be in fight or flight mode all the time. Like, your body is supposed to actually have time to come back in and settle back in, right? However, my body didn't have time. There was no recuperation. There was no recovery time. It was, continuous. So fight or flight was a continuous thing. Like, I think I mentioned in the part 1 video, like, we had to fight. Like, growing up, we fought all the time. Especially when we moved to Washington, because we weren't from here. We were from Memphis. You know what I mean? We were country. We had the most, I don't have my accent anymore. It comes out sometimes. And so because we were different in those times in 99, 2000s, like we had to fight. So we was always posted up. And so with always having to fight, like I'm always on guard. And then also having a single mom, she worked a lot. So then like we had to, look out for each other. So at times when I got out of school, when I got out of practice, I would then be walking to go pick up my sister so we can walk home together. Like just things like that where you had to be aware and really take on some of the things that if you had a present parent in the house, like a stay-at-home parent, that they would take care of. We had to do that. Like we had to get ourselves to practices. We had to, all those kind of things. And so, I was always like on guard. Well, and then also just different things that happened and situations that happened that continue to induce that fight or flight for a long period of time. Well, I was doing my research. You're not supposed to really have that. So there was a lot of things where within my childhood that built up, and then also I wasn't aware of knowing what that was doing to my body at a young age. Now I did know, like especially middle school and high school, they were just putting everybody on birth control. I didn't get on it, but they was putting all the girls on birth control. So it was just like, also at that time I have to realize like medicine and doctors and things, they don't have as much as the information that they have now, and like a lot of studies and things that they're doing are a lot new information to like what we experienced when it came to medical treatment. And so even if I knew or identified something, if the doctor didn't believe that that was something, then they wouldn't go forth with whatever you're asking. And so advocating things like that. And so there's just like a history of things that I had to keep uncovering to get to the root of it, right? So even in that, then I felt sorrowful because I'm like, you know what I mean? You start to feel bad, and you will start to feel bad, like, oh my gosh. And it's like, you feel bad because it's like, I was young, I was a child, so it's not like I could make decisions for myself. And also, you have to think about the common themes within society around that time, especially in the 2000s, like, adults weren't really good to kids. Like, they bullied us. Like, I'm just gonna put it out there. And so a lot of the rights and things that kids have now, we did not have. So like, you think about the culture and the environment that kind of allowed that to breed and to be a thing is also a thing. And sometimes that's out of your authority, that's out of your will and your free right of decision making, because especially if you're a child or if you're not an adult, you're kind of at will with whatever authorities over you. So I had to then uncover that. And then with that felt bad, right? And so then I had to admire or like reaffirm myself in that, right? And even take accountability of like, yes, I couldn't do certain things. And yes, that some of the things that I'm experiencing, even in my adulthood, are, because I know they say, oh, you can't blame people. No, you can. You can. If you're a child and something happened to you and it is impacting or impeding on your adulthood, you can place, I won't say place blame, but you can place responsibility where it's supposed to be placed. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Because if you read psychology, and I took a couple early childhood education classes when I used to nanny and do daycare, all of what you experience environmentally wise and everything else, social, all of that stuff impacts and then creates the adult that you'll be. I think people forget that. So yes, you can place responsibility where responsibility needs to be placed. However, then I needed to take accountability and say like, okay, but I can't, though I place responsibility where it needs to be placed, I can't hold on to this. So I'm accountable for holding on to it and holding on to it longer than I needed to. And even though I didn't know how to let it go or how to process it or how to heal from it, like now I know, and now I'm in a space where I'm going to now allow myself that freedom to process and let go. So though you might have been in a space like me where it's like back then you couldn't talk about nothing, you know what I mean? Like you couldn't bring nothing up. God forbid if you brought something up, like now they're throwing stones at you. Like you could not really, and not a lot of like that is now where families, they can't bring things up and things like that, or in different social circles or environments or companies, you can't really bring up the things that need to be brought up. And so taking accountability, like, okay, I was in a space where I could not and I had to contain it, but now I'm in a space where I do have the control to heal from this now. And so now, if you don't allow yourself to heal from it now that you know, then it's on you, because now you're aware of it, right? And so this is how you reaffirm yourself, by saying, like, I give myself grace for that. And then the admiration, right? So I admire my strength. I admire my perseverance. I admire all the things that it took, right, to survive that, to get through that, to then still push through, right? Then to still have a positive outlook on life. So just calling those things out of what you admire about yourself and how you were able to get over that or get through that, right? And now I'm going to turn it into a positive of, like, now I'm in a space to where I can heal. I can talk openly about it, even if they don't want to hear it, or I can do the things that I need to do. And also now I'm in a space where, or even if you're cultivating a space, because you might not still be in that space, I'm cultivating and I'm forecasting I'll be in a space to where I'll have the community that I need. You know what I mean? So you could just turn it into positives that way. So I just used my example to kind of give more of an understanding. And then this is how you call out the beauty of it. So yes, that might have hurt. Yes, that might have kept me on edge, right? Yes, that might have taken away a lot of my childhood, and the ability to just be a child. However, the beauty in that is now in adulthood, I'm able to function in a way that most people can't, right? And the beauty of that is being able to give myself grace, right? The beauty of that is the resilience and the perseverance that I have, right? The beauty of that is that even though that was painful, it built up such a capacity to where I'm not easily shaken, right? So everything that happens, it will work for your good. So you just have to find the good. And though you might not feel that this is good, I'm telling you, it always will work for your good, right? So even if you're saying, well, I've sacrificed this, okay, the good in that, in my sacrifice, and a lot of things that I've sacrificed, right? The good in it is that it's now within this season, it's coming back around, and it's coming back around in a way to where it's like, wow, I can't believe that was such a hard sacrifice, and I didn't necessarily reap the benefit of it now, but I set myself up to now I'm able to reap the benefit. And it's, not just for this year, but for years to come, right? So then calling the beauty of it, and then also calling the beauty in yourself of the beauty is that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm strong. I know people don't want to be strong, but like, no, I'm strong. I'm resilient. Like, I'm thoughtful. I'm caring. The beauty of that is through all of that, it allowed me a level of capacity and empathy that most people don't have, right? To then be able to identify even those who are hurt and are hurting people, to then have a level of empathy to empathize with them, but then also if they want to change, walk them through what change looks like. And so through all of that, that shaped something beautiful within myself, which was the empathy that I have. And even like when I know you're wrong, and I know society will say that you deserve this, however, the empathy kicks in and it's like, however, you deserve to be redeemed. You deserve grace. You deserve mercy, and you deserve a chance to get it right, right? So that is how you. That's how you do it. And you just do that for everything that you've listed. And this will take time. Again, like I said, it kind of took 1 to 2 years. So it's okay if, like, the first part, you're there for a while. That's perfectly okay. That happens. But as you get there, then you'll be able to move on to the next step. So that is all I have for you today. Next, let me actually get that. I was going to say next week is our next live teaching. It will be at noon. I'm going to get what we will be discussing. Usually I know, but I just can't remember right now. So hopefully that was helpful. I can't see like who's on live because I don't think I can see. It says comments will appear, but I don't see any comments. But I can't see like who's on live or how many people are tuned in because of the way I set it up on events. So when you go live, it just doesn't tell you that. But I do see thumbs up. So thank you to whoever is doing the thumbs up. Okay, so next week, Wednesday, here at noon. And you should already see it on the events page. So if you go to our page in the featured section right at the top, it'll have all of our upcoming events, which is our live teachings. You can just hit interested or going, and they will send you reminders of when we go live. So our next teaching is going to be our origin series. So we've kind of introduced our journey series, which is part 2, and kind of showing you the journey to modesty and also just the journey to character development and what that looks like. And then we introduced our deception series, which was last week. And so really breaking down fast fashion, which is the part 1. There is a part 2 of fast fashion that we'll be doing as well. That'll be upcoming, but breaking down kind of what that looks like. And then also from a systems perspective. So anything that we talk about here is going to be from a systems perspective, because you have to really know the system at work to really know why it's able to work. And then also the impacts or the effects of it, because I think a lot of times we see things and we're like, oh, we think about just the impact in that moment. However, whatever's established will have an impact for years to come. You just won't realize it or be able to pinpoint it back to how it started. So that's what that deception series is really uncovering how it all began and like the systems used for deception and manipulation that even have been passed down for generations, but even have then what is the word had an impact on perspective and perceptions, even when it comes to modesty, when it comes to character, when it comes to morals, all that kind of stuff, right? And we see that now, this more than ever, like that is a thing where morals, perspectives, values, all that stuff is being thrown out the window, and it's all being the lines are being blurred and stirred. So yes, now the origin series is, we're going to do part 1. So that is showing you how it all began, right? So when we talk about modesty, when we talk about modesty being a character, we kind of did an overview. That was our first live teaching. This is going to get into how it all began. I'm actually going to grab the description. Just give me 1 minute. So I'm kind of excited to introduce this new series and this new part. So this is going to be part 1. And so this series is really showing God's original intent for modesty and then where it also began. So we will start the beginning in the Bible, which the first one is Genesis, which is going to be the beginning because that is where it started. And I'll break down what that means. And then also throughout this series, it's going to show the progression and also evolution within society, with the perception of modesty. So showing you how it began, and then showing you how over time, how the perception, the evolution of modesty, what it looked like in those different time periods. And then we're going to bring it all the way up to current. And so I'm excited. I'm excited, and I've been doing a lot of research, so I'm just excited for all the series, but specifically that one, because I think once you guys see the timeline, I'm gonna be tripped out. But so yeah, so Genesis, the beginning, is going to be our part 1 of the origin series. Okay, so that is going to be next week here at noon. If you have any other questions or comments, if you're enjoying this content, please comment on the video, your takeaways or what you have enjoyed so far. I do read those comments and I definitely do appreciate it. And also, yeah, so be on the lookout for our next live teaching next week, Wednesday at noon. And yeah, stay tuned for our origin series, which is going to start at the beginning in Genesis. Thank you for your time, your attention, and I will see you next week. Bye. Oh, let me turn it off.